Hey guys, how you doing today? This is David Lucas back here again. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm coming at you guys again for another Marvel review. I know I do a lot of Marvel movie reviews, but we just had recently a new Marvel movie that just came out. Yes, I know I have not done a review on Shang-Chi yet. Wait for that. It's coming soon, guys. Next on the Marvel movie entry that we're here to review is none other than The Eternals. But Eternals is the new movie that just came out in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It just was released in theaters. As of right now, to be honest, is the lowest graded Marvel Cinematic movies today. I think it's even lower than Thor 2 and Iron Man 2. Like, it is low right now. First seen the reviews come out for the critic reviews, it was like that. And to be honest, it made me even more curious for this movie. Now, the Eternals I've always been kind of interested. I've always had an interest to it. They're on my most anticipated list. But the thing with Eternals is that nothing really excited me as much about this movie. Like, I was more interested than excited about the movie. Even when I started hearing the reviews come out and I started seeing more of the reviews, how really divided and mixed it was, because I was hearing by a lot of reviews. A lot of people liked it, a lot of people didn't like it. It was very mixed. Honestly, made me very curious and made me really interested in, okay, what really is this movie about? What really does this movie have? Now, basically, let me just say the overall plot of this movie before we get in, is that the overall plot of this movie is basically about the Eternals, who are basically these ancient beings who came to Earth when the dawn of man, and then ended up basically forming and creating humanity. And they were basically created and sent from the Celestials, and the Celestials are basically the creators of time and Earth and the universe. Basically, they basically are the Marvel Cinematic Universe gods. And basically what this movie is about is about the Eternals trying to stop a Celestial from coming to life from the planet of Earth. This is pretty much the plot of this movie, or the best way I can describe the plot of the movie, because it is kind of really difficult to describe, but that's pretty much the best way to describe it. So let's, of course, start with the good of this movie, because this movie is a movie I am very mixed on, and let's start with the good. Right off the bat, I gotta say that, like I was just saying in my basically breakdown of the plot, is that this is a very different Marvel movie. It is a very different Marvel movie. It's different than most Marvel movies, from the way how it looks and it sounds and just the overall characters and the story that it has going for it. It is very different than what you are used to the regular Marvel formula, and it goes against the Marvel formula. And that's something I really love about this movie, is that how much it really is a Chloe Zhao movie. She's the director of this movie. It is a very Chloe Zhao movie. And it does not feel like a Marvel movie. I mean, yes, of course, you got superheroes, you got all that stuff. You got the mention in Thanos and Thor and all that. But at the end of the day, when you just look at it and you see these actors and you see the story going by, it feels and it looks like a very different formula type of Marvel movie. And it's something I've been waiting for so long for Marvel. To do is what they were starting to do with the TV shows, the Marvel Disney Plus shows, and it seems like now it's starting to come into the movies, and I am really liking that a lot. I really like the new feeling of it. I want new directors, because that's something what DC does. Something I really love about DC is that every director has their own kind of taste and their own kind of feel to it, and I feel like now Marvel is starting to more let directors give their own kind of movies, and that's something I really hope that goes forward in Marvel movies. Now, this is actually something that a lot of people I heard were really mixed on. Some people were liking this aspect of it, some people weren't. But something that I really did like and really did appreciate on this movie is that how much they really mixed with the sci-fi and real life mythology. How they take, like Christianity and real life mythology of God and the angels and all that, and Genesis and the book of Genesis and all that, but mix it with sci-fi stuff. Make it different. Make it be, it's the Celestials instead of the God, and it's the Eternals instead of like the angels that come, and then it's the deviants instead of the demons. But it's very mythological, very religious, but mixed with sci-fi. And I like when sci-fi does that and makes it work, because they definitely make it work in this. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes they try that a lot, and it really messes up, and it gets all kind of little, it contradictory almost of itself. But I feel like in this movie, they managed to make it feel like it works and it melds perfectly together, to where I was really enjoying it. I really liked in the beginning how we got that first thing of the text that's on the screen that's explaining like the Celestials and the Eternals and all that, and the Dawn of Man. I really like that. I really like how it is really mixing in religion and sci-fi, and that's something I really like. Honestly, all the characters in here are great. Like, all the Eternals are just fun and cool to watch, and I love interacting with them. I love seeing them interact with each other. I love seeing them have conversations with each other and kind of have debates with each other. I love how we're getting more deeper debates with them. They have, like, humanity, and does humanity really deserve to be around? And just deeper questions that we don't get a lot of Marvel characters talking about. We get a little bit of that in, like, Captain America Civil War, where they're having a little bit of a deep political thing with Stark and Steve. But in this, we are getting a more, like, ideological and, like, philosophical type of thinking of them, with how they're thinking, like, you know, like I was just saying, like, should people really live or not? And that's kind of, it was a big plot point in this movie, is should humanity live? Should they not live? And that's why the Celestials being born on Earth, and why they're trying to stop it, is because if this Celestial was born, then humanity, this was all humanity was for. This was all that we were here for, was for the Celestial to be created. And is that really the point of us? And we get that question asked a lot in here from these characters, from the interaction with these characters, and I really love that. The characters in here were just great that really stood out. Were Makari, the speedster in here. I really loved her. I really love what they did with her in here. I really love Dirge, who Barry Cohen plays, who he's actually playing in the new Batman movie coming out, which I'm really excited for. Barry Cohen did a great job in here as Dirge. I feel like he actually, it's weird, he seemed a little bit less human than everybody else, but at the same time, because he felt so less human than all of them, he felt the most human. And it's weird to say, and it's weird to think, but he, to me at least, felt the most human out of all the Eternals. He was the most human. He was the one that kind of had our own look on it. He kind of thought, like, hey, if we have this power, shouldn't we be using these powers to help mankind? Even though they all think they do in a way by, like, you know, teaching technologies and letting, you know, learning all the stuff of humanity. He believes that shouldn't we be, like, ruling them, controlling them, should actually directing them in a way away from war and away from divisiveness and away from all this stuff? Should we be directing them away from that? And a part of the movie is that they don't do it because one of their missions from coming to Earth was that they're not supposed to intervene in big events. All they're supposed to do is kind of help guide us into advancing our civilization. Sure saw another way that we should be actually, like, hands-on making us better. Athena and Phaedos and Icarus and Cersei, they all, like, literally all of them there were just so great, and it's so hard to pick which one was better, which one was the top one, because they were there. Even Sprite too. Sprite had a lot to do, and I really like how they took a lot of what Sprite was in the comics. They really did take a lot of, even though they switched the gender of Sprite in the comics, they really did manage to take the essence and actually make Sprite who she was, or who he was in the comics. And I love that a lot. I'm actually really surprised, dude, by Gemma Chan in this movie. She was basically the main character. She was, like, kind of the main Eternal, all intents and purposes. And I think she did a great job leading it. She actually was in a Marvel movie previous, in Captain Marvel. She played one of the Kree aliens, I believe. And in here, she's playing Cersei, the Eternal. And I think she does an amazing job as Cersei. I love the romance they had with her and Black Knight and Icarus. I love kind of her kind of struggle, how she ends up becoming basically the strongest Eternal. I love her character development. I love what they do with her character. Really love Icarus's turn too. I feel like Icarus's turn in here could have been one of those things that it could have either went good or bad, but I feel like the way how they did it and the way how they proceeded it was perfect. They did it perfectly to where it was like, yes, this is him. This is what he would do. This feels logically right. I believe, actually, that he would do this. I believe that Icarus would betray them and end up killing Ajax, who Salma Hayek plays, and ends up kind of being the one that wants the Celestial to come, that wants to follow it, because he's just a soldier that follows orders. The way how he sees it, he's kind of like Dirge. He's kind of more human than anybody else, because he sees it as, this is what we were created for. This is what we were made for. Why are we going against this? Why? It never mattered to us before. We've done this before to, like, thousands of other planets. Why should we care now? We're still alive. We're still going. What's the point? But, you know, of course, everybody else is falling in love with humanity and likes humanity, so they go against them. And I like, too, a scene with Kingo. And I don't think I mentioned King yet, but I love Kumail Nanjiani's Kingo in here. He was great. I love Kingo. He's awesome. And I love that there's a scene with him and Kingo with Icarus, where Kingo, he says to Icarus, like, I agree with you. I agree with what you're saying, but I'm not going to fight my family because of this. I'm not going to fight my friends or my family because I agree with this. Yeah, I agree with you, but whatever. I'm going to go on my day. And he kind of sat out for the fight. And I liked it. And I feel like we needed something like that. And we needed somebody to sit out, somebody to be in the middle ground. It's like, look, guys, hey, I agree with you, man, but I'm not fighting anybody else. You do what you want. I don't care how stuff works out. I like that about Kingo. I like that about Kingo in here. Overall message of this movie I really like, because it's really different than, again, most Marvel movies. Most Marvel movies, you don't necessarily have like a message or like a deep message that they're trying to get at or trying to show you. But in this, it's definitely there that they are trying to give you a message. And I believe the message was like, humanity, like, do we really deserve this? What is our purpose? What is our true right to be here? Why are we advancing and all this stuff? And I feel like they did execute that message perfectly in this movie. They showed it perfectly, and I loved it. I love the message that they showed. How it was executed, too, because that's what it all matters, how it executed, and they executed the message perfectly. That's pretty much all for my positives on the movie. That's pretty much all that I liked about it. Now, you can see I did like a lot of it, but I also did have a lot that I didn't like about this movie. There was a lot that kind of threw me the other side to where it does put me almost in the middle with this movie. Now, right off the bat, I gotta say, there is a little too much in the movie, I feel like. I feel like they do put a little bit too much in the movie, and maybe it should have maybe been cut out more, or maybe the movie should have been expanded more. Maybe this movie could have, with the amount that's in this movie, because there's a lot. It's very heavy, and that's why it takes me a little bit to really think about this movie, because like I said, the messages of this movie, the themes that they pull out in this movie is very deep, and this is very unlike Marvel, to where you're used to DC and Zack Snyder doing all this, but when you see Marvel doing it with their characters, you're like, huh. And it really makes you think, and it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, but I just think it was too much in here to the point where you're a little bit overwhelmed. You're a little bit overwhelmed with how much is going on in here, and you feel like, okay, we need either cut stuff out or make this movie longer. You know what I mean? Because there was just a lot in here, and it was very stuffed. But stuffed with good things, though. It wasn't stuffed with bad things. It was stuffed with good things, but still overly stuffed, I feel like. And another thing, too, I did have a problem with the editing. I noticed while I watched this movie, it felt really weird how it went through different time periods, how it jumped through way back in the Dawn of Man to modern time to in the Middle Ages to this point, and it kind of feel like jumped through a lot. Like when I felt like that we were done with, like we should have been done with seeing like the past and how they created humanity and how they brought humanity up, we were still going back and seeing some stuff that was, I felt like, should have been shown to us in a more in the beginning when they were all showing us the past and all that, but they weren't, and they were kind of like mixing in and editing in, I feel like, at some random spots in a movie where one thing was going on and then they just completely switched to in the past, and we're looking at that, and I just feel like it confused me a little bit. The villains of this movie, the deviants, who are basically the villains, I guess you can count Icarus as a villain, but mostly it's the deviants that are the villains. Now, these are a perfect example of something that have a great idea to them. They have a great concept, a great idea to deviants in here. Basically, you know, like the opposite of Eternals. And what they do is they're like these ravages, monster-like beings that can like attach themselves to the other living beings and kind of absorb their personalities, absorb their thoughts, and become more human throughout these thoughts. Now, that concept sounds cool. That sounds pretty cool, I feel like. But now the execution of that, I feel like, is very bad. Because here you have a villain who is a ravageable monster, and throughout being a ravageable monster, beyond doing the destruction they're doing, they are becoming more and more human. But you don't really get to know these deviants. You don't really get to see them. You don't really get to understand them. They're more just these CGI, and the CGI is very bad on them too, I gotta add. It is very bad CGI on them. There's just these CGI creatures that put their tentacles on people. We don't get anything explained to. We don't have anything explained about them. They put their tentacles on people, and then out of nowhere they're smart. And then they have feelings and they all this stuff, which again is a cool concept. But the whole execution of it is that you don't really understand what's going on, and it just looks like this big CGI monster looking like a little bit more human. He's starting to look like a little more human, and he's starting to copy off certain characters who said stuff in the beginning of the movie because he's taking their memories and stuff. It just felt, the execution just felt really off and felt just really lame compared to the rest of the bigger scale of the movie this had. Now, one last thing I gotta say that I have a problem with is that I feel like throughout this movie, they really overly explain stuff. Like, there's so much time throughout the movie where they're constantly repeating themselves. They're constantly explaining, and there's so much explain. Oh, this is why this is gonna happen. Oh, this is why we didn't do this. Oh, this is why we are here to this. Oh, we're here for humanity for this. And they keep on, like, pushing it over your head and keep on reminding you about this stuff. You keep on being like, hey, this is why this. Hey, here's a slower version of explaining why this is going on, and then this. When they really shouldn't have been doing it. I feel like they were overly explained at certain times. Now, I know with the Deviants, they should have explained more about them, but they didn't, and they kind of focused more on the explaining on stuff that we already knew about, I feel like, and already kind of understood. And they just kept overly explaining it to where you're just like, okay, this is getting annoying. That's pretty much it for my good and my bads of the Eternals. Pretty much it for it. Now, basing on for my overall thoughts of this movie is that the Eternals is a Marvel movie that is a very big refresher and is very different than normal Marvel movies. It is very against the Marvel formula, and it feels like its own fresh take on this comic book genre and this comic book characters, which I really like a lot. It has a lot of interesting characters that I really loved and really enjoyed seeing. It had a lot of characters with deep thoughts and deep thinking and gave you themes that really makes you think overnight about a lot of stuff that goes on in this movie. But with that all being said, it does have very bad villains. It has very bad editing, I feel like, into where the timelines, where it shows where the timelines of all this stuff takes place in. And just the movie does feel very stuffed. It feels like there's a very stuffed movie. At the end of the day, I don't think this movie deserves the hate that it gets, and I also don't think it deserves any of the big hype that it gets, because I remember hearing that this movie was like one of the best Marvel movies ever made and all this stuff, that it deserves Oscars and everything before it was all released. I think it's the top 10 Marvel movie. I think maybe top 15, top 15 probably, I think, top 15. It is a good movie and it's not bad, and I'm definitely going to see this movie multiple times, and this movie definitely does leave me thinking and leave me really curious, and it also had me having a good time with these characters. To me, The Eternals is a well worth it movie, and my overall scoring and grade that I have to give to The Eternals is a solid 7.5 out of 10. Yes, guys, 7.5 out of 10 for The Eternals. Very in the middle of this movie. I think it's a good movie, but I also don't think it's that great of a movie where it does have problems with it. So let me know down in the comment section below, and let me know your thoughts on The Eternals. I am really curious to see all your guys' thoughts on The Eternals, because I've been hearing a lot of different thoughts and different opinions. Some people are saying this movie is one of the best Marvel movies ever. Some people are saying kind of agreeing with what I thought about it, and other people are just flat out hating this. I even seen some people say this is their least favorite Marvel movie of all time, which I honestly don't understand how it's that bad. And of course, if you liked this video, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to my channel, and check out all my other videos I got on my channel. I got a whole bunch of videos on my channel. Go check it out if you liked this video. And as always, guys, we'll see you later.